So we're going to take a look at the iron now. I had to move locations because the sun was shining on me and the camera was messed up, but now that it's getting cloudy and there's a thunderstorm coming, so we're going to have to move quick, plus they're drying out. I found 2 artillery shells, okay, and I'm going to give you close-ups of these in a second. But I want to tell you about this one in particular first. This is a Dahlgren shell, okay. It is a cylindrical shell that would have been fired out of a Dahlgren cannon during the Civil War. It's about 5 inches. I just measured it, it's like 5.1 inches. It's a Yankee shell, not real common, and has a kind of a really weird history, and we're going to go into that in a minute. It's not gunpowder. But I wanted to tell you a story about Dahlgren shells in particular. You all have probably heard of the Monitor and the Merrimack. Now those were 2 Civil War ironclad warships that went into battle against each other for the very first time in history. Well, it was the first battle of 2 ironclad ships in history. Never happened before. This happened in Hampton Roads, Virginia. So you have these 2 ships. And bear with me, I mean, it pertains to this shell, kind of. So, you had these 2 ironclad ships. The Monitor was a Yankee ship, and it was best described as, I think they said, a cheese box on a raft. Okay, so it was very low to the water and had a round turret right in the middle of that turn. Only had 2 guns, and it turned. 2 big guns, 2 big Dahlgren guns, bigger than this one. The Merrimack, well, we call it the Merrimack now because that was the original name of the ship when it was owned by the Yankees. Confederates captured it, they rebuilt it, put armor plating on the sides, and renamed it the Virginia, but we don't really call it the Virginia, we call it the Merrimack. The Monitor versus the Merrimack. Bunch of big guns. They had like a dozen big guns on this thing. So they go to battle against each other. And, well, let me back up. The day before, the Merrimack, the CSS Virginia, came out of Hampton Roads, found a bunch of Yankee warships, but these were wooden warships. And it just devastated the fleet. It sunk a bunch of them, killed scores of men, and the wooden warships couldn't do anything because the cannonballs would just bounce off the steel. You know, the iron that was plated on the side of this thing. This thing was like, it was shaped like this. It was pretty high up out of the water, but it was sloped, so the cannonballs would just hit and bounce, hit and bounce. Sunk a bunch of ships, some really big first-class ships that day. No problems at all except for one. The main weapon of the Merrimack or the Virginia was a spar on the front. This was a big iron like spear, and what it would do, it would drive into the wooden ships, crush the sides, back away, and the ship would sink. That was much more effective than shooting it with cannonballs. They could do that because the cannonballs from the wooden ships wouldn't hurt the Merrimack with the sloped iron sides. But what happened is, on that very first day, the Merrimack hit to sink the USS Congress, which was a giant wooden warship. Got stuck in it, almost sank with the Congress, but managed to pull away, but it left the iron spar or tip or spear in the Congress. They didn't even know it. They didn't even know it the next day when they were fighting the Monitor, which is kind of a weird thing. Anyway, back to the Dahlgren shells. Next day rolls around, the Yankee ship shows up, big battle, they're firing at each other. The Yankee shells are bouncing off the Merrimack. The Merrimack shells are bouncing off the Monitor. You know, the Yankee ship could not sink each other. They fought all day, couldn't sink each other. But there was a reason for that, okay? The Confederate boat, the Merrimack, only had exploding shells. It didn't have solid iron balls. And that's really what you needed to hull, you know, an armored vessel. It would go through a wooden ship, but not an armored vessel. And by the end of the day, the Confederates had quit firing the big cannons at it because they knew they couldn't do anything to it. And they were like popping at it with muskets, trying to shoot through the slots in the side of the Monitor. Okay, so they weren't going to sink the Yankee ship. The Yankee ship had Dahlgren guns, but bigger than this one. Okay, but they were kind of a new gun, And the inventor of the Dahlgren gun didn't want them to use full charges of gunpowder. They wanted to reduce it because they were afraid something might happen in the ship. So they were firing like 2/3 loads. And the Dahlgren projectiles were bouncing off the Merrimack. They couldn't hold that ship either. And later tests proved beyond a doubt that if they had used the regular charges for those 2 Dahlgren guns, they would have held the Merrimack just like that. They would hold it and sunk it. But because they were using reduced charges, the Merrimack got away. Confederates burned it shortly thereafter. But that's just a little side story I wanted to share with you, although it's kind of long. But I did that because this is a Dahlgren shell. Like I said, it's not a real common shell, and we don't know a lot about it. So why don't you come on over here, and I'm going to point out a few things, tell you about this. It's really bizarre. Come on over. So let's go ahead and talk about this Dahlgren shell, and let me show you a few things. But first, let me show you this. This has already been drilled and flushed of all powder. Anything that was inside there has been flushed out. Now, it never had gunpowder in it, but it had what's in that little jar. But just so you know, this is a perfectly safe projectile. That's going to take about a year to preserve. But basically what a Dahlgren shell is, it's a kind of a weird little thing. It's got pre-engraved rifling on it. This was cast like this when they made it. This is the rifling that spins it when it goes out the barrel. If you look in the front, you'll see that there is a brass plug. Now this isn't a fuse, which is really weird, isn't it? Because you would think that if you had a hollow shell like this, that's hollow, that it would be designed to explode. But for some reason that we don't really know for sure, they put black sand in these shells. No gunpowder. They would just fire these, and it would just hit whatever it did and bounce off, or or go through it or whatever, but it would not explode. Called a blind shell. Now, after I drilled this, I gathered up all of the black sand that was in here. That's what is in this little jar right here. I have not measured it yet, but I'm going to. But it's not even that much sand, really. Very little, but that was in here. We don't know why they did that for sure. It's not gunpowder. Very strange. It's just, we don't really know. It's just very strange. So that's a Dahlgren shell, really neat find. Not very many of those found. I've never found one. That's the first I've ever seen. This is a 12-pounder. This is a common Borman fused exploding shell. Okay, now this is how it would be loaded into the cannon, okay? If you look here, this is actually a wooden base cup. This is made out of wood. This was attached to the shell with iron straps that have rotted away, but you can see the outline of them, or it was attached. And what this was designed to do is to keep it centered in the cannon when it was loaded, so that when it fired, the flames from inside the tube would come up the sides after it exited the cannon and go into the fuse right here, which would start the timer on it to make it explode. If it did not have that base cup and they loaded it and the fuse got pointed back toward the fire, it could ignite prematurely when it was still in the barrel and explode. So these always had these wooden base cups, and this is really neat. Lots of time I'm going to have to spend on this to preserve it. This has also been drilled and flushed. That's the hole I made. There's no gunpowder in it. It's perfectly safe. Pretty neat, huh? That's a neat shell right there. Let me just show you with this black sand real quick, just what it looks like. Kind of looks like gunpowder, but it isn't. See, it looks almost, it's kind of a little bit rusty. If you put a magnet on there, some of it is attracted to the magnet, but not very much. So it's not magnetite. It could be hematite, which I don't believe is attracted to magnets, but that's the black sand that was in that shell. I don't know if anyone knows how much black sand is normally in those, because not many of these have been found. So now we're going to take a quick look at the iron and a couple non-iron things that I have here. I'm just going to show it to you briefly because I want to get it back into water before it dries out and before the storm hits. These big balls here are Grapeshot, okay? This would have been a stand of grape. When I first found this ring, I thought that it might be a ring for the Grapeshot. I don't think it is. I think it's too big, but basically it would have been These grapeshot would have been stacked like this, and then there would have been more stacks going up with bolts coming through holding it together, but I think this ring is too big. Big grapeshot. These are smaller grapeshot. Same thing, they would fire these out of cannons like a big shotgun against other ships normally. These smaller ones are probably out of the inside of a cannonball like this. And like those little lead balls that I found and you saw earlier, which by the way, measured 1.42 inches, for those of you who cared, who were interested in that. But yeah, so these are just different sized grapeshots. These are shell fragments from a cannonball that exploded. This is really cool. This is what's called a saber bayonet. Now you can see the brass is in pretty good shape here. I don't know what kind it is yet. I have not looked for markings, but I'm going to clean that up. This is the iron blade, which is rotting away, unfortunately. I don't know how much that I'll be able to save, but I'm going to try. Of course, there's an oyster shell stuck to it. You can see the brass does pretty good in the water, most of the time, but not all the time. And of course, like those lead mini balls I was showing you, depending on where they are, they can be pristine or they can be almost dissolved away. This leather strap was found with this saber bayonet in the exact same hole. So I will keep these together. And this is a wooden handle off of a knife, I do believe. That's broken. This would have been the blade coming out here. That's a wood handle. Need to get this back in the water. This is a lead doohickey. I'm not exactly sure. It has a hole through it. Looks almost like a cannonball fuse, but I do not believe that's what it is. All right. Oh, one more thing. This is also a shell fragment, and I can identify it by looking at these lines right here. And this tells me that this is probably the base to a Schenkel shell, an exploded Schenkel shell. This isn't the same as the pre-engraved rifling I showed you on the Dahlgren Shell. This is slightly different, but a Schenkel shell is a Schenkel shell. So, now we're going to have some fun. I'm going to go ahead and clean these up just a little bit more, get them back in the water, and we're going to break open those little mystery items with my little silver hammer named Maxwell. We're going to go bang bang and break them open. It's going to be fun. Got to get the stuff all recorded first though, so just bear with me a minute. So I rough cleaned the grapeshot and stuff I just showed you, and I set it there. I'm going to run it up to a place I have up on the hill, which is a big tank of water that actually recirculates from another bigger body of water. So that will help start getting the salt out as they're waiting for their electrolysis bath, which is going to take a long time. But these are the mystery items that we're going to go ahead and take the little hammer and we're going to see what's inside them. I suspect there's a lot of grapeshot here, but I don't know for sure. I wish you could feel this grapeshot. This is an iron grapeshot. It's light as a feather, or case shot maybe, from inside a cannonball. But because it's been in salt water, well, let me just tell you that. If you look at, say this, let's just use this clump right here. This could actually be one of these. Could be that size, because what happens in the salt water, much like you saw with some of those bullets, is the salt water leaches out the iron. The iron comes out of the inside of this ball, mixes with the sand and the silt that's around it, and it forms a cocoon just like this. This is probably a round ball, maybe a little bit bigger than this. But when it does that, it loses the iron. This becomes light as a feather. Another 100 years, this will be a ghost of what you see today. Let's break them open. Come on over. Okay, so let's go ahead and whip through these pretty quick so we can get them back in the water. Let's just start with this one. What do you think this is? I think it might be a shell fragment or maybe a spike or something. So we're just going to take this little silver hammer and bang bang right here, just lightly, until we can, whoa, well see, this is off already. This is probably a spike that has, just like I showed you with this little piece of, not grave shot, but case shot, all the iron has leached out into the cocoon and made a cocoon. There's almost nothing left. There's no preserving this. This thing will crumble in your fingers. If I had left this out in the sun, within a week it would have been dust. Alright, so that's just an old spike. This, I have no idea either. I think it might actually be slag. It may have been an iron something at one time, but yeah, it's probably like a little piece of it might be a shell fragment, maybe. I'm not sure. You can see how it's a little bit striated here, so that's telling me actually that this is forged, not cast. Cannonballs are cast. They won't have these lines in them like this. This is forged iron, so this could have been part of a spike or something. Alright. This is kind of roundish, so I'm suspecting it's a small iron ball. We'll just tap it lightly. Got to get this stuff off somehow. Yeah, that's what it is. This is a little case shot, just like the one that I showed you in the beginning of this segment. Okay, so that's good. Maybe just slightly bigger. Much heavier though, much, much heavier. Alright, moving on. Roundish, I can see that it's probably a Grapeshot or a case shot. We're just going to tap it lightly. You don't want to hit the metal, this metal right here, you know, the solid. You don't want to hit that. What I'm doing is I'm just hitting the cocoon. You can hear it as it makes a hollow noise as I'm tapping it. That's the cocoon breaking off. So that's a slightly bigger one. Three different sizes right there. That's pretty cool, huh? Moving on to the next one, kind of roundish. Not very heavy though, but this is probably one of those iron balls as well. Let's go ahead and break it open. Listen, listen, listen. You'll hear the cocoon break away from the side of the shell. Whoops. There it is. Look. That's another one. Grapeshot or case shot, but you can see how all the iron is leaching out into the environment and binding with the sand and the silt. That's what's going on. These won't be around a lot longer. They'll outlive me, but not too many generations past probably. They'll just be like a empty, there'll be a cocoon with nothing in it. That's what's going to end up soon. So, we just gonna break these off real quick. Okay, good enough for now. I'll do that when I'm done with the video. Another one, kind of light, roundish here. It's probably a Grapeshot. I don't know for sure. We're just gonna bang, not on what we think is a solid metal cocoon. You can feel it breaking in my hand. Ah, yeah, look at that. That's beautiful, isn't it? I love it. Oh, that is as light as a feather. That's amazingly light. Listen, listen to it. Alright, another one. Hopefully it's some type of Grapeshot. Tap, tap, tap until we hear a hollow sound. There it comes. What do you think? Pretty sure that's what that is. Man, that's on there tight. Whoo, that one stinks. Might have been some barnacles that were alive. I just broke that one, didn't I? Which I'm sad, but is actually kind of good because you get to see what's going on the inside of one of these case shots. Look at it. It's granular. Look how granular that is. It's actually kind of soft. And that's what I'm telling you about. See, you can see I'm actually marking it with my finger. That's iron. That's supposed to be hard as iron. And I can mark it with my fingernail. Another 100 years, this would just be a hollow core with incrustations around it. I'll be more careful next time, but there wasn't much to this anyway. All right, one more. Let's see, this is a bigger one, isn't it? Here's hollow sound. We'll just break it off a little more carefully this time. Now, even though we're going real careful with these, we may not be able to save them anyway. They may be too far gone. That's really light too. That's a shame right there. If these had been in fresh water or on land, they would probably be fine. But salt water, not so good. Same thing. This is a bigger one. Oh, right in my eye. Yeah, see, look at that. That's the inside, that's the iron dissolving. That's horrible, isn't it? This thing's light as a feather too. But we'll preserve it as best we can. Saving history, I guess. It's raining, I gotta hurry. Okay, we did that one. This one real quick. Probably same thing. Yeah, this one's all, look at that thing's falling apart too. Nice and shiny though. Ooh, it's very pretty. It's really smooth and shiny. I've never seen one come out quite like that, but it's really light too. Let's try this one. It's kind of square and chunky. But it's case shot. I'm just going to call them grape shots from now on. How's that sound? That's a beautiful one right there. It's a little bit heavier. This is a shell fragment. We'll just knock a couple pieces off so you can see it. I'm not going to do too much. It's really light. I do not think it's going to survive electrolysis very well, but that's a cannonball. When I say a shell fragment, that's a 12-pound worm, and like that whole one I had. That looks like it's probably a grape shot here, but I don't know what the rest of this is. Maybe it's gold coins. Let's find out. Ready? Look, I think that's a piece of a cannonball right here. That's a shell fragment, I do believe, that was laying right next to a case shot or a grape shot, and they fused together as they leached iron into the environment in joyful abandon. Yeah, look at that. Look how bad that looks right there. Of course, I could be wrong. Yeah, I guess I am wrong. There was no joyful abandon there, but you can see it's all dissolving. I don't know why that was rounded right there, but we won't worry about that. Now the big one is probably a grape shot. We don't know though. Do we? You know yet? I really don't know about this. This probably is a bigger one. It's pretty light too though. Yeah, look, it's coming out here. Look how green that is. That's the different chemicals leaching out of the iron and or combining from the environment, the saltwater environment. Very light. It's a shame. That's probably less than a quarter of what it should weigh. Probably round on the inside, but don't know for sure. Not sure on this one. What do you think? I think this is just a piece of like a spike or something that's broke. Yeah, you can see it's got angular sides. Oh, it's a nut. This is a nut for like a nut and a bolt. So we'll clean that up. All right. Know what that is? I bet you do. That didn't take much. That one bites the dust. Beautiful, huh? You can see the mold seam going around that one. That's pretty. Just a couple more, guys. Hang tight, hang tight. This isn't going to be one. Yeah, it's a... Oh, wow. That's a shell fragment from a cannonball. That is like... that weighs less than a little piece of an oyster shell. Listen. Whew, it stinks. Two more. That's it. Two more. What do you think? I think it's a grape shot. There, here it's hollow sound, cracked open. Ready? Ah, yeah, that's what it is. It's another grape shot. Lightly tap the sides here, get that off. Almost got away. And looks like a double grape shot, so I'm not sure what this is. This might be a spike or something. I don't know. Let's find out. Enough talking. Whatever it is, it's broken already. So it's very soft. It's a shell fragment. It's a piece of a cannonball. So we'll go ahead and clean this one up and try to save it, but I really don't think... Oh yeah, look at that. This is just like that other piece I showed you where I said it was a Schenkel shell. You can see the this piece here. This would have had a paper mache sabot with a bow on the bottom. Paper mache. That's how it gripped the rifling. All right, that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to go ahead and get this stuff cleaned up really fast. It's going to get we're getting a thunderstorm. It's almost here. Get my hands cleaned off. Get all this stuff in that big water bath I was telling you about. I'm going to start that Dahlgren Shell on the electrolysis process probably within a week or so. I hope, because guess what? I'm hitting the road first thing in the morning. I got my truck back. Moki's ready, and we're going to go digging somewhere else, and we're going to find some good stuff. I have a feeling, so we'll see you next time.